Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Musician, a coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM229 titled A Killer Marketing Campaign That Cost Nothing. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This is take 3 at 11:30 at night. I've shared recently that a lot of these are getting done late at night because that's when my whole family is asleep and that's when I can fit it in. So take 3, what could possibly go wrong? I have been starting out the show recently with a random shout out to music or musicians that have really been making me happy lately, and I wanted to shout out to the band Living Colour. Vernon Reid, if you didn't know this, who's the guitarist, who's the amazing guitarist for Living Colour, is one hell of a follow on Twitter. He's really good at the medium. He has a lot of conversations with people. It's a true back and forth. It's great. I highly recommend you following him if you are a Living Colour fan at all. But I will never forget the first time that I saw the Cult of Personality video in 1989 as an 8th grader in suburban Boston. That thing blew the top of my head off, and I went to the record store to Strawberries and I bought Vivid, their first album, I believe the next day, and I listened to it on a loop for years. They made a huge impression on me and still do to this day. So I just wanted to say thank you to those 4 gentlemen for really changing the trajectory of this musician's career. TEM classes and workshops are coming soon in early 2021. We'll probably announce the first of those next week, so stay tuned for that in TEM 230. Also, a race to 150. The YouTube channel has 142 subscribers, and the Apple Podcasts has 147 ratings. I just said the Apple Podcast. That's a good way to sound old. Also, you can just be old like I am now, and that's another good way to sound old. I'm trying to see which one is going to get to 150 first. So Apple Podcasts is in the lead, but YouTube has been closing the gap. So we will have to see. Shoot me a line if you end up being number 150 on either of those. Last episode, TEM 228, featured the Maclean duo, which was wonderful. If you become a Patreon patron, you can hear their bonus episode this week. They stuck around to talk about each of their personal creative rhythms, getting organized, and the importance of having systems in place for maximizing productivity. It was a really, really nice extra conversation that we had. That's available exclusively to patrons of TEM. You can head to patreon.com/TEM podcast to become one today. TEM 229, a killer marketing campaign that cost nothing. This is actually going to be a short episode, but I think it's really good because it's interesting. As I'm about to tell you, this marketing campaign is awesome. It really inspired me. So I see this marketing campaign by a creative. In this case, it was an author that had my jaw on the floor with how cool and remarkable it was. My first thought when I saw this story was, I am sharing this with my TEM audience, so here we are. This marketing genius comes courtesy of first-time author Will Maclean. Now, Will has been a successful television writer for years in the UK, but he just wrote his first ever novel, which is titled The Apparition Phase. It was released October 15th of 2020. It is very much worth noting, by the way, that I saw a fellow author compare doing a book launch this fall to shouting into a hurricane because the news cycle was changing faster than I've ever seen in my life. Between the election here in the United States, which gets covered internationally, obviously, and the constantly changing global pandemic that we are still right in the middle of, I've never seen anything like it. But Will Maclean was able to cut through that noise to the point where I'm telling you about it, and all for no money. He did not spend a penny on this. So what the hell did he do? He sold a limited set of 1,000 autographed copies of his novel. This is not in any way unusual or remarkable. Authors do this all the time. It's quite common. But what he did with those books is anything but common. Each book came numbered. Again, that's common. And Each one had one handwritten word that was included on the signature page directly below its number, like 47 out of 1,000 or 48 out of 1,000. He wrote an additional short story that was exactly 1,000 words long and included one word in each signed copy. It didn't take long for the people getting signed copies to figure out what was going on, and they all took to Twitter to try to piece the story together. Of course, this also included like punctuation, so sometimes it might say like school and then period, and so you get that. You see, you're like you're the 35th copy, and it says school period, and as soon as you see punctuation, you're like, oh my goodness, he wrote a story, right? This is so brilliant. Now, he, of course, had to write a short story that was exactly 1,000 words long, which I'm guessing even for a professional writer, that took some time. He then had to number each word and then write those words into those books, which, again, those took time. And you could see his signature. He hand wrote these words in. This was not somebody from his publisher who did this for him. All of this took quite a bit of time. But the ultimate goal is to have your fans do your marketing for you. I can and do tell people about TEM episodes that I think they will get a lot out of. It's important to be able to promote our own work. I've talked about that many times into this microphone. But when one of you knows someone and insists to someone else, or even doesn't know someone but insists to someone else or the world that they have to check out an episode of TEM, it means a lot more to them coming from you than it does from me, the guy who made it. Will Maclean had people all over the internet talking about his novel when he had never even written one before. So what's the lesson here for the rest of us? David Cutler always says that 99% of people in any given space, like let's say a fiction writer who's writing novels, will market their art, a novel, an album, consulting services, whatever, in a very similar way. 99% of people market their thing in a very similar way. They will use similar words. They will reach out in similar channels to similar groups of people. Cutler says you need to be the 1% who goes the complete other direction with your marketing strategy. If your album or novel or event is remarkable, but nothing about your marketing is remarkable, then there is a disconnect there. And the first time that I heard that really stopped me dead in my tracks, because I have produced, as I bet you have too if you're listening to this podcast, I've produced some pretty remarkable stuff. Like, not just stuff that's like there and is just done well, so that's the cool part, like some pretty creative stuff. And then I thought about how I shared it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've shared this like everybody shares everything. So there was a total disconnect there between how remarkable my art was and how remarkable me telling people about it was. It is important to keep in mind that if marketing this effectively was easy, it would no longer be effective, right? It wouldn't be remarkable if everybody could do it. The key to having great ideas is having lots of ideas. If you're new to this podcast, you have to be brand new to this podcast and never have heard me say that before. And if you've listened to all 229 episodes of TEM, first of all, you need help. Second of all, thank you. But you've heard me say that how many times? The key to having great ideas is having lots of ideas, but you're not going to have great ideas right away about remarkable marketing. Start regularly thinking like this about your marketing, and it will always lead to more traction down the line. So that really knocked me out, and I think you can see why. As soon as I heard that, I was like, I have to share this with the TEM audience, because we all know that we need to be remarkable, but it's really good even when there's an author involved, right? Yeah, and I have written a couple of books, but I bet most of you have not written books and published books, because most musicians don't publish books. They're very busy doing tons of other creative stuff and shipping other stuff. And I guarantee you some of you have. So there's not like a direct parallel here between writer, and I've also never sold a physical book, so that would make this even more challenging. The point is that I think that the principles that he used, with the help of a publisher, but the principles that he used are directly applicable to all of us, whether we are sharing YouTube videos or songs or albums or consulting services or setting up a private teaching studio, etc. So thank you to Will Maclean for that marketing inspiration, and thank you to you for listening to TEM. I always really appreciate your attention. That is the most valuable commodity that any of us ever have, and so for that I always say thank you. There are just so many places that you can be putting your attention, and so the fact that you are here with me really means a lot. So, the entrepreneurial musician is, can you tell that I didn't have the thing set up? I was vamping there, and yeah, it was hard. Thank you to everyone for listening, subscribing, leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM. Didn't I just say that we talked with the McCain duo about having systems in place for maximizing productivity, and then I didn't have the outro up? That was fun. And simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. TEM is produced by Will Houchin and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and Andrew Hitz. You'll be amused to know that I actually thought, like, wait, can I do this from memory? There's no chance. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our new website, tem.fm. You can find out more on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.